Hello everyone, and welcome to today's session. I'm excited to introduce our topic. Unit 7, Everyone Makes Mistakes, Conversation and Listening. Today, we'll explore how mistakes are a natural part of learning and communication. We'll look at some real-life conversations and practice listening skills that help us understand and learn from errors. So, let's get started and enjoy the learning journey together. In this slide, we're focusing on the key lessons for today. First, we have the words match, practice, use, answer, listen, each with their specific meanings that we want to understand correctly. Next, we'll look at how to put the phrase real talk into correct sentences so it sounds natural and clear. We'll also review the proper way to reduce past modals, which is important for sounding more fluent. Additionally, we'll go over how to respond appropriately to an apology, a useful skill in conversations. There are some questions about the conversation that we'll cover, helping us practice understanding and responding effectively. Lastly, we'll focus on extracting specific information from conversations, which is a valuable skill in real-life communication. These objectives tie everything together and are essential for improving our language skills in practical situations. Now let's take a closer look at this image. You see two people shaking hands. This gesture often signifies a greeting, agreement, or a friendly exchange. So, what are they doing here? They are engaging in a handshake, which is a common way to establish trust and build connections in many cultures. Next, we see the names Sarah and Fatima. These are the two individuals involved in this interaction. Understanding who they are helps us appreciate the context. Perhaps they are colleagues, partners, or new acquaintances. The slide also asks, who are they? And emphasizes that there are two people. It's important to recognize that the interaction involves just these two individuals, which makes the scene more personal and direct. And finally, the question about the number of persons. There are only two. This detail helps us focus on the nature of their interaction, which is direct and one-on-one, often an essential element in communication and relationship building. Throughout this presentation, remember that such gestures and interactions are fundamental to fostering understanding and collaboration, key themes as we move forward. Listen for the answer to this question. Sarah forgot about her friend Fatima's graduation. What do you think happened? Sometimes, we all get caught up in our busy lives, and it's easy to overlook important events like a graduation. This situation highlights how important it is to stay attentive to the people around us and remember significant moments in their lives. It also connects to the overall theme of our presentation, which is about building stronger relationships through better communication and awareness. So, think about what might have led to this oversight and what we can learn from it to improve our own connections. So here we see different ways people might respond when something unexpected happens or when they're feeling a bit embarrassed. For example, Sarah might say, "Who says?" as a way to downplay her mistake or situation. Then we have flake, which is often used to describe someone who cancels plans at the last minute or isn't reliable. Fatima, on the other hand, might respond with "Who says?" and then follow up with "Don't sweat it," which is a reassuring way of saying, "It's not a big deal." She might also say, "Who says?" again, but this time, she's making light of the situation by saying, making too much of it. It's a reminder that sometimes, we tend to overreact or blow things out of proportion. Then, when Sarah says, "Slipped my mind," she's admitting that she forgot something, an honest, relatable response. And Fatima might respond with "No big deal," reinforcing that forgetting isn't the end of the world. Overall, these exchanges highlight how different people handle mistakes or forgetfulness, often with humor or reassurance. It ties back to the overall theme of managing stress or embarrassment in social situations, showing that a lot of times, it's all about perspective and how we choose to respond. Let's take a moment to read the words on this slide and understand their meaning. This step is crucial because grasping the key terms will help us better understand the core concepts we're discussing today. When we encounter new or complex vocabulary, it's important to not just memorize the words, but to also understand how they fit into the bigger picture. By doing this, we can communicate more effectively and apply these ideas practically. So, as we go through the presentation, Keep in mind that these words form the foundation of the concepts we're exploring. They're essential for connecting the dots and seeing the full scope of what we're trying to achieve. What did she say? Well, as you can see, there are a few variations of the same phrase here. The core idea is that someone is downplaying a situation by saying, "It's really no big deal," or "It's really not a big deal." These expressions are often used to minimize the importance of something. Now, why is this important? Because it shows how people tend to brush off concerns or issues, sometimes to avoid confrontation or to appear more casual. It ties into our overall theme of communication and perception, how we interpret and respond to what others say, and how that influences our understanding of the situation. So whether someone says, "It's really no big deal," or just simplifies it to "no big deal," the key point is that these phrases are used to downplay something that might actually be more significant than it sounds. Recognizing this helps us navigate conversations more effectively and understand people's true feelings behind these words. So let's take a closer look at this slide. The core question here is, what did he say? This is all about understanding the message or the intent behind the words. Now notice the different ways the phrase is expressed. "Don't sweat it, bro, I'll leave it alone," versus "Don't sweat it, bro, I left it alone," and then "Don't sweat it, bro, I leave it alone." Each variation subtly shifts the tense and consequently the meaning. The first one, "I'll leave it alone," shows a promise or a decision made in the future. The second, "I left it alone," indicates that the action has already been completed. And the third, "I leave it alone," sounds more like a habitual or ongoing choice. This highlights an important point about communication. The tense we use can change how our message is received or understood. When we're clarifying what someone said, paying attention to these nuances helps us grasp the true intent, whether it's a promise, a completed action, or a consistent habit. Connecting this to our overall theme, it reminds us that effective communication isn't just about the words themselves, but also about understanding the context and the timing behind them. So, always listen carefully and consider the tense and tone. It's key to truly understanding what was said. So what did she actually say? Well, the key point here is about the way we interpret or perhaps even misinterpret communication. The phrase, "let's no make too much of it," is a common way people might say, "Let's not exaggerate or blow things out of proportion." However, you'll notice that there are variations like, "let's not make too much of it," and the incorrect form, "let's not made too much of it." The important thing to recognize is that these differences highlight how language can sometimes be inconsistent or confusing, especially when we're trying to understand tone or intent. In the context of our overall theme, effective communication, it's crucial to pay attention to these nuances. Small differences in phrasing can significantly change how a message is received or understood. So, when we're analyzing or discussing what someone said, we should be mindful of these variations and focus on the core message rather than getting caught up in minor grammatical differences. This helps us stay clear and accurate in our interpretations and ensures our communication remains effective. What did he say? Well, sometimes we genuinely forget what was just said in a conversation. It's a common experience, right? When I say, "It completely slipped my mind," I mean that I momentarily lost track of that information. Similarly, when I mention, "It completely slipped his mind," it shows that forgetfulness can happen to anyone. And occasionally I might say, "It completely slips my mind," a slight variation but just as true. These expressions highlight how forgetfulness can affect our communication and understanding. Recognizing this helps us be more patient and attentive when we're trying to recall details in conversations, which ties into the broader theme of effective communication and memory. So let's look at this slide. The question is, what did he actually say? And then we see a few different ways people might interpret the same situation. First, we have truth. He's really flake. Here, someone is questioning the honesty or accuracy of what was said, maybe implying that the person is genuinely unreliable. Then moving to true, he's total flake, which is more of a confirmation, suggesting that yes, this person is indeed consistently flaky. And finally, truth. He's a total flake. This line emphasizes that the person's behavior is genuinely flaky, not just a one-time thing. The key point here is how different people interpret the same words or actions differently, often influenced by their perception or bias. In the context of our overall theme, understanding communication and perception, it's important to recognize how ambiguous language can lead to varied interpretations. People often jump to conclusions based on these subtle cues, which can impact trust and relationships. So this slide reminds us to be mindful of how we interpret others' words and to consider the underlying context before rushing to judgment. So on this slide, I want to highlight a common situation that many of us face, forgetting something important like a loved one's special day. Here, she's apologizing to Fatima for missing her graduation, which shows how sometimes our commitments or stress can make us overlook significant moments. Sarah was so focused on studying for her finals that she unintentionally missed Fatima's big day. This really emphasizes how our priorities and stress levels can affect our relationships and our awareness of important events. And the good news is, Fatima doesn't mind at all. She reassures Sarah not to worry about it, which reminds us that understanding and forgiveness are essential in maintaining healthy relationships. This connects to the overall theme here, balancing our responsibilities with our personal connections and learning to forgive ourselves and others when things don't go perfectly. It's a valuable lesson in empathy and understanding amidst busy, stressful times. This slide doesn't contain enough information. That's why we're moving to the next slide. So, one of the incidents involved losing a $10,000 ring. It highlights how valuable personal possessions can sometimes be lost unexpectedly. Then, there's the story of the wind pulling a balloon from someone's hand, which serves as a reminder of how uncontrollable natural forces can lead to accidents. Interestingly, this person wanted to give his wife an anniversary ring, showing that despite setbacks, the intention to celebrate love remains strong. Another key point is the fire that caused $80,000 worth of damage. This underscores how quickly a fire can escalate and cause significant financial loss. In this case, it was set intentionally to get rid of bees. While it might seem like a quick fix, it demonstrates how taking risky shortcuts can result in bigger problems. Overall, these stories tie into the broader theme of how unpredictable events, whether natural or accidental, can have serious consequences. They remind us to be cautious and thoughtful in our actions to prevent such costly incidents. Let's take a closer look at the slide, starting with the letter A, which represents the initial step or concept in our process. It's essential to understand how this foundational element sets the stage for everything that follows. Moving on to F, we see an important connection, or perhaps a critical factor that influences the next phases. When we consider B, it underscores the importance of building on that foundation with specific actions or insights. Then we have D, which might highlight a key milestone or decision point that shapes our direction. Next is C, emphasizing the need for continuous evaluation or adjustment to stay on track. Following that, E reminds us of the importance of closing the loop, ensuring that all elements come together effectively. Throughout this slide, the key takeaway is how each of these points interrelates, forming a cohesive pathway that aligns with our overall theme of strategic progression and effective implementation. Let's take a look at what's on workbook page 294, specifically exercise H. This is a homework assignment designed to help you reinforce what we've covered today. The key here is to apply the concepts we've discussed in a practical way. Think of this exercise as an opportunity to solidify your understanding and see how these ideas work in real scenarios. Remember, doing this homework will not only deepen your knowledge, but also prepare you for any future applications or assessments. So, I encourage you to approach it thoughtfully and thoroughly. This is an important step in your learning process, and I'm confident you'll find it beneficial.